Okay, so here we go. You know, it's been a kind of a disturbing day if any one of you have listened to the Usman Khawaja press conference. Usman Khawaja, 88 test matches for Australia tomorrow, possibly his last if he plays the Sydney game. Uh, I say possibly because he has already announced retirement. I mean, whether or not he will be picked, we will know in the morning. Chances are he will be because he got a 40 odd even in the last test. He did a press conference. He's had an illustrious career: 43 average, 88 test matches for Australia. In more recent times, except a David Warner and a Steve Smith, no one really has gone on with as an Australian batter to play these many number of tests. Usman Khawaja hasn't really done the his batting any good in the last 2 3 years, except that double hundred in Sri Lanka. In that series against India, he was kind of a walking wicket to Jasprit Bumrah. Had it been another era, when you think of a Ricky Ponting or Steve Waugh, that era, Mark Waugh, that era, Steve Waugh, Damian Martin, that period, would Usman Khawaja have been given 88 test matches? Maybe not. Having said that, no one can question his resilience, his grit, his commitment to the sport. And the press conference, where he kind of takes on institutional racism and calls out political hypocrisy, will always be. It was an interesting speech. It kind of polarizes opinion, and I've heard that Usman Khawaja speech very very closely and minutely, and I'm not here to take a position on this. Let me first say this: I'm not here to take a position on Usman Khawaja and say, Khwaja is right or Khwaja is wrong. He has said what he felt like. He is absolutely entitled to doing so as a cricketer. He served Australian cricket with distinction for 15 odd years, and now he's calling it a day. But I will try and analyze what he said because these are deep, disturbing comments. As analysts of sport, as commentators of sport, when you know a country fairly well, I've lived in that country and worked in that country, I can kind of relate to what Usman Khawaja is talking about. And that's where kind of these concerns come from. You know what? Let's let's take the first point that first let me quote Usman's press conference for you because uh, let me give you the details. So here's what Usman Khawaja said. Okay, so he says, I get it. My name isn't John Smith. When the 50-50 calls happen, they are not going my way. Why am I trying to be like everybody else? I'm hoping the journey for the next Usman Khawaja is a bit easier and we get to align however many generations where the Usman Khawaja is the same as John Smith. That's what I've been trying to champion the whole time. I can give you even more guys who have had 15 beers the night before, then got injured, and no one said a word. That's all right. They are just being Aussie larrikins, just being lads. When I get injured, everyone went at my credibility and who I am as a person. Normally, when someone gets injured, you feel sorry for them. Poor Josh Hazelwood, poor Nathan Lyon, they've got injured. Let me stop there. So, when you are saying that I was forever the odd man out in the team, I've played 88 test matches, but I was not John Smith. I was Usman Khawaja. Now, there are two things here. First, despite being Usman Khawaja, you played 88 test matches, and maybe a John Smith did not. Maybe a larrikin, what is a larrikin? A badly behaved person, did not. So when you are saying that I was the odd man out, did you ever try? I mean, were you always playing as an Usman Khawaja who was different from John Smith? So were you part of an Australian setup and were you never part of an Australian setup? Was Usman Khawaja ever a part of the Australian 11? Or was he that lone island as a silo operating as not a John Smith? Was he a team man or not a team man? Was it that he always felt persecuted? Was it that he always felt insecure deep down that he would be singled out? What is the real Usman Khawaja? Who is the real Usman Khawaja? Team man? Let me tell you this. I was introduced to Usman in 2013 in Chennai. And the man who introduced me to Usman, David Warner was glowing about Usman Khawaja. Now, if you went and asked David Warner has multiple times told me in personal conversations about his fondness for Usman Khawaja. Great guy, terrific guy, really nice bloke, very good cricketer, hardworking cricketer. At no point did David Warner give me the notion that Usman Khawaja is not John Smith. He is a Muslim boy from Islamabad trying to make a living in Australia. So when you are saying that, okay, you know what, I forever and my quest has been that the next Usman Khawaja should not feel persecuted. So who's the target? Is it the tabloid? Is it social media trolls? Is it people at large? Is it society at large? Australian teammates, colleagues, cricketers? On retirement day, 88 test matches for Australia. Is it the day to say these things? Is there a time context to kind of really open up and blurt things out? I understand there is a lot of resentment. Is this the day when you've played 88 test matches for Australia? And by the way, how many people have been able to play 88 test matches for Australia? And there have been things like Australia did not celebrate with champagne because Uzi was there. And I know this. I know Usman Khawaja. As I said, I was introduced to Usman in 2013 when Michael Clarke was captain. And Michael and David, two of my best friends, always spoke highly of Usman. Michael did mention to me that Usman, during that Border Gavaskar Trophy, may not look the same batsman anymore, but thereafter he went to Sri Lanka, got that double hundred. Now, my question is, when you're calling out institutional racism, when you're calling out hypocrisy, when you're saying that, he spoke in favor of Gaza and there are, and he was called out. Now, let's take it step by step. It's kind of disturbing, isn't it? It's kind of disturbing. I mean, even I don't know how to phrase it, and words are my friends. When you think about it, when you think about it, and you tend to think, okay, so is there racism in Australia? The answer is an overwhelming yes. Is there racism in the world? The answer is an overwhelming yes. So when I've worked in Australia between 2005 2008 in Melbourne, lived in Kent Street, used to go to La Trobe for work. Did I feel singled out? At times, yes. In India also there is racism. It's everywhere. It is endemic. Take the case of Dhanraj Pillai. Now, Dhanraj Pillai, when he was playing first, we used to say "Kale ko pakad, kale ko pakad." I used to be there. I used to hear, and the players would shout "Kale ko pakad." Now, is that institutional racism? It is. When you are talking about African footballers plying their trade, we say such words. It is deep down. But for example, when take a star like a Chima Okeri. Now, when Chima retires or leaves, I mean, has he got more love from Calcutta? Usman Khawaja, 88 test matches for Australia with that baggy green, average of 43, last 3 years, average of what, 26, 30, something like that. Both he and Manas should be really lucky to have played that many number of tests. So shouldn't there be gratitude at least on this day that whatever you are calling out, Larry Kins, I am not John Smith, poor Nathan Lyon, poor Josh Hazelwood, you still was able to play 88 games, right, Usman? You were allowed by that same Australian establishment to play those 88 games. When you did play, were you 100% there or were you not there? So when I think about it, I mean, and I'm trying to understand it in the larger context, where I do think Usman makes sense is when he says, "I took a stand." So take the zero tolerance against racism, for example. Now, when a player calls it out, all of a sudden we have seen in the administrators say, "Oh, but don't speak about it." When they take a political stand, "Oh, don't speak about it." We have seen these things happen. In the case of, we have seen big placards, right? We have seen in Western democracies, we've seen placards uh, calling out, Gaza or whatever. But the moment that Usman Khwaja takes a stand, and you're like, why are you taking this stand? And he's kind of called out. He's But on the other side, Australia has celebrated a sporting culture. Say, Doug Walters. Doug Walters was at the bar, and David Boone, who's had 52 cans of beer on a flight to England. Usman gets slammed for wearing that black armband, and like I said, in the Western world, which displayed Ukrainian flags in solidarity after the Russian invasion, such things were hailed. So there are double standards in this world. I am not at all trying to say that there are no double standards. There are no double standards. There are. Clive Lloyd. Clive Lloyd once told me that he was not made the captain of Lancashire because his color was black. And thereafter, he became a Lancashire legend. And last year, you saw, this year rather, sorry, last year, Farouk Engineer stand and a Clive Lloyd stand getting inaugurated at Old Trafford during that India versus England test match. So Clive Lloyd or any of these players, I mean, has racism been part of our sport for years and years and years on our society? But Usman actually was the counterpoint. Usman, had he said that, look, it's possible to be Usman Khwaja and play 88 tests. You don't need to be John Smith. It was fine if you were Usman Khwaja. It was fine if you're a Tanveer Sangha. Fine. In Australia, Usman Khwaja, 88 tests, you got a best friend and a buddy like a David Warner. That's fine. Tomorrow is your last test. It came across as this deep sense of resentment against the very team that harbored him for the last 15 odd years. And that kind of left me a little disturbed as far as Uzi is concerned. There are some very meaty points that when you are growing up in a country which is not your own, you're an immigrant in a country which is not your own. And all of us, I mean, people who have lived in alien lands, I've lived in the US, I've lived in Australia, I've lived in the UK. Have I not felt alien at times? I have. I don't drink. And in my case, I used to feel very alien with this drinking culture. People on a Friday would inevitably go to a pub and drink till about 11, 12, 1 a.m. in the morning. And because I am a teetotaler, I would be singled out. And people would make fun, oh, why don't you drink? But that's part of a certain culture. In China, if you don't smoke and you don't drink, you're not considered manly in some parts, and it happened to us. But in the case of Usman Khwaja, I thought Usman had an opportunity to make this press conference really lofty, saying that despite being an Usman Khwaja, despite not being a John Smith, look at what I was able to do. I was able to play 88 test matches, and being a Muslim young boy coming from Islamabad, making Australia home, there is multicultural Australia as well. Not all is bad. If all was bad, Usman would not survive. Think about this. If the dressing room was as vicious, if the entire cricketing ecosystem was as vicious, would Usman Khwaja be able to survive 50 test matches, leave alone 88 tests? I understand he will have a lot of people will call the speech a politically loaded one and a great one that he opens up and he's called it out. Like I said, I'm not taking any position. All I'm saying is I have been disturbed by the Usman Khwaja retirement speech. Quite a few questions. Let me take the questions and try and understand what you all feel. Try and help me out a little bit. I really need to know what you all feel as well. What are the highest batting average Minimum of 3,000. Bob Simpson 3664. Matthew Hayden 50. Langer 48. Usman 48.05. Look at that. Look at that. Usman Khawaja 88 tests. Warner is his childhood friend, says Anshu Mishra. Correct. Such an ungrateful, dumb cricketer. He called all critic racist. Nave Thomas. Sorry to say, but Usman thought that retirement speech a bit thankless towards the team. I felt somewhat similar. I felt somewhat similar. He's not a new immigrant. He lived there almost 3 decades. Nave Thomas. Sorry to say, Usman thoughts was that's Indian supporter. Fitmonk. Usman press conference was anger and ego driven. Never bite the hands who feed you. Interesting comments. Very, very interesting comments on the show. Latest update on ODI selection. Shami comeback on cards. Yes, the selection. I've done a column on Shami today, Rupayan Gohon Yogi. Read that column. It's quite got a lot of traction on social media, the piece that I've done. Mohammad Shami, does he deserve a callback? Yes, that's exactly what I said on the show yesterday. That given the kind of form he is in, the fact that he's been able to prove fitness, if India does rest a Jasprit Bumrah, Mohammad Shami callback looks possible. So we'll see what happens. Uh, India Muslim versus Hindu, Anit Shadhu. India is a lot. Why only Muslim versus Hindu? I mean, if we are saying that we are a very harmonious society, we will be lying, isn't it? I mean, at the same time, is everybody a bigot? No. We are also a very proud secular country. Uh, and that's a fact. That is a fact on it. And that's how it will be. There is no black and white. There can't be a black and white. How is it that there is a black and white? I mean, in what way? Take the Mohammad Shami case. When Mohammad Shami was told, Virat Kohli stood up for him. Each one of us stood up for him. Mohammad Shami is an absolute Indian legend. Do we think of Mohammad Shami as Muslim or Hindu? Do we think of Mohammad Shami as Indian? Do we think of Mohammad Shami as an Indian cricketer? Do you think he's okay, a Muslim from whatever UP coming and plying his trade in Bengal? John Smith, yes, no. Mohammad Shami, Hindu, yes, no. Does it even matter? And that's what Usman has kind of left me with. I'm not a John Smith. Maybe at some point in time I will be. Why do you want to be? Be Usman Khawaja. If by being Usman Khawaja, by raising my voice against injustice, by raising my voice against things that are not perfect, I am able to do what not even 1% of Australia does, play 88 test matches for the world's topmost cricketing country apart from India and England. That's something, Usman. That's something. And that also says something about the system that appropriated you, that allowed you, that made you Usman Khawaja, not John Smith. When you retire tomorrow, you will retire at Usman Khawaja, who was given an opportunity by the same very system that created a John Smith to play 88 test matches. Usman owns $4 million house and has married an Australian woman who converted to Islam for him. These things are not things I need to get into on the show. Being thankless to the organization which feeds you for 20 years is a weak man, thoroughly disappointing, says Fitmonk. Yeah, I mean, it's a very divided kind of press conference. Usman should have spoken about opportunities minorities are getting in his home country too. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, Steve Ticolo 25. Call them out. Call them out. I mean, is India a perfect society? But at the end of the day, when I'm retiring after a fantastic career, a career which lasted for 15 years at the top of Australian cricket, will I only be concerned about or largely be concerned about the negatives? Will I come across as a man who is bitter to the core? Will I come across as somebody who is really resentful of my own people, my society, my teammates? I don't know. I've heard that press conference. We've had a really detailed discussion in our work group about an Usman Khawaja and who he meant. Is he talking about the selectors? Is he talking about the tabloids? One of my colleagues said he's talking about the tabloids. Shomik has messaged me something interesting. Let me read it out to you. For every racist in the Western world, there is a Rishi Sunak who gets the opportunity to hold the country's top office. He's right. Shomik is right. There's an Amartya Sen who could become master at Cambridge, a position that was held by Isaac Newton. Absolutely. Absolutely. Each one of us who have been to the West, who have been part of a system. I had the opportunity of getting a Rhodes Scholarship and studying at the hallowed fortress of the Oxford University. I didn't Did I feel persecuted or not being a John Smith? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. As an Indian, and look at the kind of the Indian diaspora in the United Kingdom or in Australia, I felt proud. I never felt that I wanted to be white. I wanted to be Anglo Saxon. I wanted to be who they are. And over the years, I would get close to who they are, as Usman said. Not one bit. Not one bit. And like Shomik said, Amartya Sen, by being Amartya Sen, became the master of Trinity College, Cambridge. Rishi Sunak became the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So there are stories. Let me take more questions. This has been quite an interesting show to do. Steve Ticolo, I've taken that. Fitbunk, I've taken that. You guys keep repeating your questions. Don't do that. Steve Ticolo, you've done it for 100 times. Don't do that. I will take the question. Don't spam. If Usman pointed out the problems he faced, Priyanshu, he should have also expressed gratitude for all the opportunities, overcoming the challenges, precisely what we are getting at. When you point out such things, are you helping the next Usman Khawaja? I'm assuming that Usman wanted to leave behind a legacy for the next Usman Khawaja where it would help the next Usman Khawaja, because that's what he has said. But after all that he has said in his retirement speech, has he actually helped the next Usman Khawaja, or has he scared him or her? Suppose you are a young Muslim immigrant coming out to Australia and wanting to play cricket. Would you think of Usman Khawaja and say, oh, you know what? If this man, after 15 years at the top of the Australian game, remained an Usman Khawaja and never became a John Smith, so clearly, what discriminated against, do I have a chance? If you are a young man from India or Pakistan, I don't know where, or South Asia, and Sri Lanka, there are many Sri Lankan immigrants in Australia. Would you think the same, that, oh, you know what, Usman Khawaja, after 15 years and 88 test matches, was still not part of the Australian team? He was an outsider or a loner or an alien who played for Australia, yes, but was not playing for Australia. You know what I mean? There and, yet not there. I was there and yet I was never part of the whole culture. There are instances, right? There are instances when Australia did not celebrate with champagne or alcohol because Uzi was there. He was there and they respected him. They respected what he stood for. They respected what he did, or where he comes from. Yes, he was called out, but at the same time, he was still allowed to be part of the Australian setup. So maybe introspection was also necessary there. That little degree of gratitude, whatever he could have said maybe later. I don't know. Abhishek Rawat, Uzi may have felt certain things. That is why he said what he said, but that's their culture. They are open. They don't mind criticism. It's us in India who thinks it's too much. Maybe it's not that there. How is it true, Abhishek Rawat, in what you're saying? If that is what it is, he kept calling people out and said he felt persecuted, that he was unhappy with being called out and unhappy being, oh, poor not Nathan Lyon and poor not Josh Hazelwood. Clearly there is deep down a serious resentment. How is it that he did not him Of course he has taken it to heart, and that's why he's calling it out. It's not an open culture at all. If it was an open culture, it wouldn't even matter. Tomorrow is his retirement day. He would talk about the 88 test matches, talk about 232, talk about some of his great knocks up, talk about, how he shared the dressing room with some of the greatest players of all time, some of the greatest Australian teams of all time, celebrate them rather than talking about all this. So Abhishek Rawat, how is it that you can say that the culture is such that it's open? It's absolutely not open. Absolutely not open. Let me take more questions. Suresh Kumar, Australia should look at Nathan McSweeney as opener. Looks like a good player to me. Against India, if you see, Nathan McSweeney did not really look caged, looked a little under. in the sense he was not able to play his shots and thereafter was kind of caught out. So we saw what happened to Sam Constas, and even at that point in time, if you remember, we had said that they were comparing Sam Constas to being the real great of the game and Virat Kohli and whatnot, and Sam Constas lapping Jasprit Bumrah one test, and look where Sam Constas is not even making the Australian team, and retirements are happening. Where is Sam Constas? When people built them up, the Australian tabloids built him up as next God's incarnation on face of this earth. Where is Sam Constas? Which country, place, organization doesn't have issues? Priyanshu, we can't have such pessimistic tone. I kind of agree with this. We have a lot of issues in India. We will continue to have issues in India, rich, poor, Hindu, Muslim, class, non-class, but there is an Indian side. There is an Indian side. When India won at the Oval, how many of us felt Mohammad Siraj, who was bowling as a Muslim from Hyderabad? Or did we say Mohammad Siraj and we didn't want to talk about him or didn't want to celebrate him, or felt that, oh no, Prasidh Krishna should have taken the wicket and not Mohammad Siraj? Did any one of us remotely believe or remotely even think along those lines that Mohammad Siraj was perhaps one iota less Indian compared to somebody else? Not at all. Not at all. In that press conference, Shubman Gill and Mohammad Siraj. Mohammad Siraj is one of my best friends in that cricket team. Have tremendous respect for him. Tremendous respect for Mohammad Siraj from where he has come, where he has gone. From the time, have backed him wholeheartedly from the time he lost his dad. We know. Did anybody think of Mohammad Siraj as? No. So where is all this resentment coming from? So Priyanshu's point is well taken there. Well taken. Anit Sadhu, very good to see Usman is raising his point, and India players are scared to do so. Anit, if you had to raise, that's the counterpoint. If you had to raise, you're actually raising your point at the end of 88 test matches when you've played your innings and you're done. You too come across as a bit of a bitter person, right, Anit? Had you raised it at 50 test matches 5 years back, make that point every day that, oh, I don't feel a John Smith in that dressing room. I don't feel, sorry for Usman Khawaja, much like Nathan Lyon or Josh Hazelwood. I would have understood. 5 years of cricket left at the top of my game. I'm questioning the system. Not now. Not now, when I'm at the end of my career. I'm done. When the next Usman Khawaja will see me and want to play the sport, and all of a sudden I'm leaving a legacy which is that of bitterness and minority. What are you calling out? Who are you calling out? And what are you coming across as? You want to call a system out. And as I said, some of the points that Usman is raising are endemic in our society. Is there a time and a context? Could you have called it out in a better manner? Could you have called it out in a different press conference rather than the day before your retirement test match? Could you have called it out in a separate context, maybe? In a more positive framework? In a more, how do I put it? More conciliatory manner, saying, okay, these are the good things, these are the bad. Can we improve here, and not say that, oh, I never became a John Smith? Don't know. So on it, I'm kind of torn. When you disvalue, respect your viewers, your channel is death, be kind always, do not say, Shubhamoy Shaha, Boria Majumdar, let me read your comment. When you disvalue, disrespect your viewers, your channel is death. So be kind always, do not say again, we are the best channel, best investor, people who say best, etc. Shubhamoy, you're right. You're right in the sense, what you're talking about, that you're basically saying that, okay, let's be rooted, let's be humble. 100%. 100%. At the same time, when you are holding a product, I'm very proud of being an Indian. I'm very proud of being a part of Red Sports. I'm very proud of the work that I do. And the pride is inherent. The kind of work that my people do as far as Paralympic sport and Olympic sport. So if they are unfairly criticized or trolled, I am not one to take things lying down. I will go and take a bullet for my people. And yes, we are the best. And that's why we believe what we do. So death or no death, who will cause death? You. No. Ultimately, we are only answerable to our conscience, no one else. So that's where the pride comes from. And the pride cannot be misplaced, Shubhamoy. If we are not backing up the pride with work, then at every juncture we'll be called out. So that's why I read your question out in the spirit of being a healthy debate and a discussion. But if there is one person who talks nonsense about, the junior most member of my team, I will take that person down. It's as simple as that. Because as I said, this is an organization that has been created with tremendous amount of blood, sweat, toil, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. We are not dependent on trolls or people who abuse. We don't need you. If you want to engage like you did, I took your question, I gave you my point of view. Now it is on you whether you agree with me or not agree with me. You can disagree and do so in a civil manner. I respect that. You can disagree and start, taking your pitch up. In that case, I'll consider you a troll and move on. That's what it is. Uh, India is also a racist country. I realized when I was seeking for my life partner, looking forward to get married. Obviously, needless to say, every country in the world is Dilip Deb. Every country in the world. This is not a perfect world. It will never be. Never be. The United Kingdom, Oxford, one of the best cities in the world, upwardly mobile, no real crime. Even Oxford. Is it a perfect city? No. Calcutta, no. Delhi, no. Mumbai, no. Australia, no. Melbourne, no. Sydney, no. No country. America, no. Look at the incidence of violence. Having said that, it's still you have to work from within the system to better the system. You cannot be outside of the system and say, I will change the system. It doesn't happen. A system can only get better, even if an iota of getting better, if we operate from within the system. Suppose someone else, like Shubham Shah, said the culture of rev sports is bad. He can say that. Suppose he says the culture of rev sports is bad. He has to be within the system to understand us and then kind of resurrect it and change it. To call from outside and just make a flippant comment and move on will not work. So Usman Khawaja had the opportunity of being inside the system, even if he changed it 1%. That's the contribution that he has left, and that's the thing that he ought to celebrate on retirement day. He's a good cricketer. Make no mistake, 88 test matches don't come easy. Baggy green. People take a lot of pride in playing one test for Australia, leave alone 88. One. And Uzi must be hugely proud of his achievements. And that's where I was a little taken aback with that press conference. And it had me thinking. I'm not saying he's right or I'm not saying he's wrong, by the way. He must have felt this. He must have deeply felt this. That's why he said what he said. At least his close buddies deserve his piece of gratitude. Fitmonk, with whom he played for Australia, guys like Cummins and Stark, gracefully. David Warner, 100%. 100%. I mean, his teammates who he celebrated with when a wicket fell, they all got together and they celebrated. They celebrated a test match win, a series win last year against India, this time against England. So when he was celebrating, was he celebrating as an Australian cricketer? Was he celebrating as an immigrant? Don't really know. Across sectors, Ashok Nambudri, one of my colleagues and friends and someone I respect and admire. Across sectors, professionals and not just sports persons undergo this kind of treatment. This is a very important point. That it's not restricted to sport. It's in every sphere. In academia, I've faced this. In journalism, people have faced it. Women face it. So when Shormishta goes to the United States, to Chicago, does she face it? When Gargi goes to Australia as a journalist, does she face it? Of course they do. When Ashok lives in any part of the world, you will always face this. But then the question is, in a multilingual, multicultural, multiracial world, will you fight the system, get yourself within the system and try and change, or will you resent things? Because if you start resenting things, all you will end up with at the end of 88 test matches is bitterness. I really want to understand if Usman Khawaja today is a very happy and satisfied man and at having a glorious career for Australia, or is he somebody who is deeply resentful for what he has had to go through? Only Usman can answer that question. Fitbunk at least is close buddies. We've taken that. Ashok, I've answered your question. Usman press conference words the same like a person who resigns from a corporate and asked in next interview why he left, complaining against his old company, Orindam Maji. These are comments coming from viewers. Huh? I'm not saying these things. I've clearly expressed to you that I was left disturbed. Australian should Nathan Maxwini. Did Usman wanted to be the captain of Australia? Is that the frustration all about Orindam again? Maybe, could be. Uh, so you're trying to say that because he wasn't made the captain, that's what made him this bitter, and that's why he kind of says that, oh, a Josh Hazelwood or a Nathan Lyon or a Pat Cummins or someone, and I stayed Usman Khawaja and did not become John Smith. Wow, interesting. But then if I take the same example, Orindom, Shane Warne was never made captain of Australia. Shane Warne is perhaps the greatest legend who could have captained Australia or could have been a captain of Australia, did not become. Steve Waugh was, but was Shane as bitter? Shane perhaps had more talent than Usman. I wouldn't be wrong in saying that. Was arguably the greatest bowler that this world has seen. Did not captain Australia. Look at his captaincy record for the Rajasthan Royals. Will any one of us say that Shane did not have the acumen? We wouldn't say that. So was Shane as bitter as Usman or as resentful? Don't know. Don't know. Amartya Chakraborty, Boryada, do you think we will ever get facilities like Colorado Springs Olympics Training Center? 100% we will. Amartya, I'm not comparing, but I would request you to go and check the Pulala Gopichand Academy in Hyderabad. Just go there. Go there. I had gone there some years back and then I went there a couple of weeks back. You should go and check the transformation there. Look at the facilities, sports science, the kind of sport, everything that there is at the moment at the center. Check out the Inspire Institute of Sport. Check out the Reliance facility. Check out these facilities and then come and tell me if they're not world class. They are. They absolutely are. Usman, the same story as Danish Kanaria, complained being a Hindu. Maybe that's an extreme example, Orindam. Extreme example, Ashok, I've taken yours. Just don't understand why Usman did this. Where was an instance when was selected on cricketing merits, not on color and religion? Again, Orindam. Lots of questions, and people have actually engaged really well with this subject. I mean, this is not a mass subject, and I'm totally fine with intelligent questions rather than questions which have just been randomly asked. Really good show with some very, very interesting and insightful questions today. Australia, the land gave him so much opportunity. Steve Ticolo as immigrant, which he wouldn't have got in Pakistan. Fair point once again. Usman was deemed unselectable. The subcontinent ended up averaging 61 in tests on Asian soil. Anshu Mishra, exactly why would you not highlight all of this? Completely off topic. Sometimes I feel scared for my little brother in Australia because of the rise in hate crimes. Hate crimes are everywhere, Amartu. Hate crimes are everywhere. When I was in Australia in 2006, 7, 8, Dr. Hanif, that case happened in Melbourne. There was hate crime. That area from Kemp Street to Bandura, where the La Trobe campus was, at times at night, I would feel scared. Hate crimes are everywhere. You've got to be, you've got to know where your 6 o'clock is. You've got to be careful. In Chicago, say in that area where Shorvishta used to live, in and around Hyde Park, where the university is, we were always on guard, because you had to look over your shoulder. You had to know what was going on. So hate crimes are everywhere. Look at the kind of hate crimes in the United Kingdom, in Europe. But does that mean that South Africa or African countries, does that mean you'll stop traveling and say, oh, you know what, I'm scared, I will never go to any part of the world? Is India completely without hate crimes, you mean to say? No. Look at your home. Look at your home. Look at what's going on in Bangladesh. Look at hate crimes everywhere. How is this world a perfect place? Priyanshu, okay, Boria, your thoughts on not allowing the Fizz to participate in the IPL, ultimately government's call? Yeah, should be. I mean, should be, because ultimately it's a political issue. It's a completely political issue. One has to see what's happening there. Last couple of minutes, very disturbing show, and the questions keep coming. The questions keep coming. Suman Avasthi, it was more like Usman debut political press conference than his retirement press conference from international cricket. It was a loaded press conference. I don't have a problem with it being a political press conference or Usman making some really deep thought political points, because look, sport is politics. When you stand on the field of play with your hand on heart and singing the national anthem, you are making a political statement. So if anyone says that it was not, sport and politics are separate, no, that is never the case. That is never the case. If anyone says that, we are all lying. What do you think? How will Cricket Australia? Cricket Todd Greenberg has kind of really come out and praised Uzi. I think they will take it with grace. I think they will take it. They've dealt with so far with a lot of grace. They've commended Usman Khawaja, talked about his foundation. I was reading multiple articles that the kind of work that Usman Khawaja Foundation is doing. So I don't see Cricket Australia kind of taking their angst out or their frustration out or making a case of this. I don't see that happening. What Usman did just put on the youngster who is not white or aboriginal. Yeah, I mean, think of the Kathy Freeman example. Kathy Freeman in Sydney, when she comes up, right? In 2000, it was the champion of Aboriginal culture when Kathy Freeman wins her gold medal at the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney. Bangali from Germany, what do you think? How will Cricket Australia team react? Have answered that. Let me end the show. Let me end the show with saying that Usman Khawaja has kind of left. I feel everyone from Messi Ozil to Usman Khawaja must have felt deeply hurt. You know what, Pratik? If you felt deeply hurt and disrespected, don't do it. If you've played cricket for 88 matches and played for 15 years, and at the end of 15 years, you're going out with resentment, we are all doing something we love, right? I mean, we are not being compelled to do something. Was Usman compelled to play cricket for Australia? Maybe not, right? I mean, you always have a choice. Everyone has a choice. And if you do not exercise your choice, it's your problem. Don't come and blame the system at the end of it. Maybe he's not trying to do, maybe we are misinterpreting. Who knows? Let me end the show on that note. I wish Usman Khawaja well. I wish Usman Khawaja has a great final test match. I hope that he contributes to making Australian society more inclusive and more sensitive, and create more Usman Khwajas and not want to convert them into John Smiths, because that's never the point. Sport will always be political. It is a political reflection of who we are, the society we live in, the world that we live in, and Usman was a part of that. And no system in the world can ever be perfect. The quest, ladies and gentlemen, is always to be perfect in an imperfect day. That's the quest. The quest is always to be perfect in an imperfect day. I hope Usman does that for the next 5 remaining days of his cricket career. Thank you very much for joining me.